what is passion?
Passion is something that is really important to us, a big part of our identity, but also something that we just really enjoy.
What is a strategic way to approach this whole topic?
If I were to talk to a person who's telling me they don't know what they're passionate and they think they have no passion, the first thing I would say is like...
So if you had the chance to recommend people, okay, if you want to live a great life, do that.
Don't try to optimize for well-being and happiness. I mean, it's simply not working. I think trying to focus on what gives you immediate happiness in the moment is not the way to go. Instead, what I think what people are looking for in life is...
Welcome to the VaPassion podcast, where we are all about picking the brains of experts in their niche to learn more about their passions, their life paths, and their career choices and key learnings, so we can take our learnings away from that. And today we got a very special guest because he is not only very passionate, he is also researching about passion. And he's researching there at the Harvard Business School, and he's a PhD candidate. So the word to you, Kai.
Hello.
What are you passionate about, maybe, starting that?
Oh, thank you for having me. It's a big honor to be here today. And I think there's quite the irony that I am very passionate about research, but also studying passion myself. And I think the earliest passion related to what I'm doing now that I can think of was just human psychology, more generally. I think I've always been very interested in how humans work and function and operate. And slowly that has transitioned more into like the work context in recent years, but then also more into research. And research was never a passion that I had ever planned with. I was doing my undergrad in Saarbrücken at Saarland University, studying psychology. And basically, now looking back, I think I was a bit naive. I was studying psychology, and the only thing that I knew was that I didn't want to become a therapist. I knew I didn't want to go the clinical path, but I had no idea what else to do with my life. And I think this is a huge privilege. Like, I was very fortunate that I was sitting in the statistics lecture, and probably unlike most other people, I was like, this is really fun. I'm really enjoying this. And then I got more exposed to like statistics and research methods and so on. And I was like, wow, this is perhaps what I want to do for the next 5, 10, 20 years of my life. And then I decided to do a PhD.
That's extremely interesting because I'm a psychology student as well. And I think we know the same questions people often ask in terms of, oh, you study psychology, you got to be able to read my mind now, or you can heal my depression now or something. But that really isn't what psychology is all about. It's an aspect of it, but it is not all about, right?
You can't do that? I can. I can read your mind right now.
Me as well, though.
No, I'm kidding.
But the question is, how did you end up in this working research field then? Because as I have come to know, there are many different fields in psychology. Why was it that?
There's so many different fields, and I think part of it is probably just coincidence that I landed up in the organizational niche of psychology. But thinking back, there was also the main part that I was interested in. Growing up, as a teenager, I loved reading all the books from Adam Grant, for example, who is an organizational psychologist. I just didn't know it back then. But those were the kind of topics that I was interested in. So I think I was focused on social psychology phenomena, how do people work in groups? Or what do my own emotions, how do they affect me in my day-to-day life? And then I think when I started thinking about research, I got more interested in how can I do research that also has an impact, where I don't only have to do surveys with undergrad psychology students, but also go into the field and explore these questions in day-to-day life. And work takes up such a big part of our day-to-day lives. And that's probably why I thought that's a good fit for me and the things I'm interested in.
Very nice. And now to be quite straightforward, why do you think that passion for work is exactly that niche? Why is it valuable for people?
I think, personally, passion has always played a big role for myself. I knew that I wanted to do a job or pursue a career that had some sort of meaning or purpose. And I mean, there are different approaches to work, right? We can pursue work just to like make money or like have a stable job or to not be at home and just be bored, but to have something that is like more like on like the stability kind of side. Then there are other people who identify more on like the career side, who want to like climb the career ladder and gain more status. And then there's what some people call like the calling kind of orientation, that where you want to have like a meaningful and like purposeful career. And I think by pursuing your passion at work, that's one way how you can make your work more meaningful. And I think that's what I wanted to do more personally. But I also see that in our research data that over the past 20 years, like this whole ideology around like follow your passion has really sparked. A lot of people were like, find what you're passionate about, do it, and do it well. I think that has started mostly with the commencement speech from Steve Jobs at Stanford in, let me guess, 2008 maybe, where he was like, yeah, do what you love. And I think since then, a lot of people have like really internalized that in their minds, especially in the US. Maybe less so in Europe, but I think in Europe it's also increasing. I'd be curious to hear what you think.
It is increasing though.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is. That's why we do this podcast, we do this initiative at our school. And I think the need for that research topic is really, really increasing in our times, because we have a lot of hurdles and a lot of things that want us to distract us from our passions, maybe like modern time social media and stuff. But maybe what is your take on that? Is that maybe a hindrance? Is that dangerous for your passion?
You mean social media in particular, or like all the challenges that we see in our day-to-day lives?
Especially social media, because I think that's like a core thing that changed throughout the last few years, and maybe there's a correlation there. I don't know.
Yeah. Oh, totally. I think what I focus on in my research is that the contrast between how we talk about passion and then what it actually means to pursue your passion in day-to-day life. And I think those two things are somewhat disconnected most of the time. I think the way that we talk about it is the idea like do what you love and you'll never work another day in your life. And many people idealize this idea or romanticize it. And they portray the pursuit of passion as like kind of easy and straightforward and like not having a lot of challenges, to be honest. And then in day-to-day life, when you actually pursue a passion, it can be quite challenging. There are many like things that want to keep you from pursuing your passion. Like it's a huge time investment. You need to make sacrifices. And we can talk about sacrifices more later today. But there are like other things happening that make it actually more difficult to be passionate. Sometimes I'm thinking like, if I just didn't care about my work as much, it would be easier, right? And so I think that there's a disconnect, and social media in many ways is amplifying that disconnect. I think the way that people talk about passion on social media is often like in very like positive ways, whereas like, and I mean the word passion in German, Leidenschaft, literally means like the ability to suffer. I'm over exaggerating a little bit, but it's actually more negative than we think. It can be quite exhausting to pursue your passion.
Yeah, there were so many hints that I'd love to dive deeper into. But before we dive deeper into maybe the terminology of passion and in what sense it is different to maybe other terms that we throw around very casually.
Yeah, we do.
I'd maybe like to dive deeper into why Harvard for you, and then also how you see your current, what is your current status quo? What are you working on? What is the vision into the next couple years?
Yeah. So personally, I think I already mentioned that I did my undergrad at Saarland University, and I grew up in Saarland as well. And then over 5 years ago, I moved to the US for the first time, and now I'm living in Boston most of the year. And I think that transition has been quite extreme. It's because it hasn't been something that I've ever planned with. And I mean, maybe like there's some people who are like very excited about going to the US and for whom like living in New York or visiting New York as a tourist is like a big dream. And I've honestly never really had that.
Okay.
I think like even a year before I was first moving to this, I was never thinking about going to the US ever. So it was quite
Crazy.
surprising to me as well. But I had just finished my undergrad, and then I saw this ad for a research internship at Harvard Business School. And then I just applied to it. It seems so random now because it's completely changed my life ever since. But it was just like a really small decision. And to be honest, I didn't even expect to get in. I remember how I was thinking about the application for this internship for quite a few days because I was like, is it even worth it for me to apply there? It's like Harvard was like this super abstract thing, and sometimes it still is, but back then it was even more so. It was like maybe something I've heard at like when watching Gossip Girl or something like these Ivy League unit. I had no connection to it whatsoever, but then I still applied to it, and then luckily got in. Why did I get in? I don't know. I think there was a surprisingly good fit between the research that I was thinking about doing and the research they were looking for.
Nice.
And I had
Was
also
it passion back then
it was
already?
actually
or-
passion
okay.
already. I wasn't that locked in on the topic, but I wanted to study positive and negative emotions at the workplace, which are somewhat related. And I think also statistically, and we can talk more about my methodological approach later, I was focusing on one very specific method, which is called the experience sampling method. And that was exactly what my supervisor back then was looking for, too. So it's like a lot of coincidences coming together. And then I was doing this internship and then staying there initially only for 3 to 6 months. And then I wanted to go back to Germany to do my master's here. But then everybody in Boston was like, why do your master's in the first place if you want to do a PhD? They were like, in the US, you don't need a master's to do a PhD. I didn't even know that back then. So I wanted to go back, but they were like, no, just stay here, gain more research experience so that you can improve your CV and then apply for PhD positions. That's what I did for 2 years, then applied. And now my
That
third
worked
year.
as well, right?
Now my third year as a PhD, and now PhD candidate, not even PhD student anymore. It's like the final stage of the PhD now. And I've been living in the US for over 5 years.
That is very nice.
It's
And
crazy.
yeah, I believe that. That is for many a dream. For many also, as you said, maybe seems super irrational to even think about that
For
possible
me
life
as well.
path.
Yeah, for me as well. It's
Yeah.
like it's. I think important to emphasize that this was never something that I planned with, and now in hindsight, I'm obviously very happy that I made the decision to apply. But I think there was a different reality where I wouldn't have even applied because I was like, I won't get in anyway.
Yes.
So maybe if there's one learning from my path here, it's just do it. Like Nike would say, just do it.
Just
Yeah.
do it. Okay. That I really I always want to jump forward because like that is I think very interesting in a sense that often our passions arise through big coincidences.
Yeah.
Like you often can't plan it, right?
Yeah.
But maybe also let's move that further back.
Yeah.
I to close the image now of you, so the audience has an idea. What is the perspective for the next maybe like 2-3 years, and what's your status there?
Yeah. So I have 2 years left in my PhD. In the US, most PhD programs are structured as 5-year programs. And we have some PhD students who take 6 or 7 years. So our PhD is usually quite time intensive for like many different years. But I'm planning to finish the PhD in 5 years, so 2 more years. And then I'm currently thinking about where to go next. I think I want to stay in academia, at least want to try to stay in academia, apply for like either postdoc positions or assistant professor positions. And I haven't really made the final decision yet on whether I want to stay in the US or whether I want to go back to Europe or even go back to Germany immediately. I think in the medium to long term, I do see myself in Germany again because there are many things about this country that I've also come to appreciate more since I moved to the US. But maybe there's like another option in between before I come back to Germany eventually.
Okay, that's very interesting.
Yeah.
I think you really have to just keep your eyes open, right? That's and not to fix too much on a specific life path maybe, and just be curious, right? As you said, find in terms of finding your passion, be curious, try stuff, and also in the your your future way, right?
I think so too, and I think in many ways you need to trust the process that things will somehow work out, even if we don't know how they will
Yeah.
work out. And if we like over plan things, I think that's often like an anxious response to like not knowing what will come next. And I think then we'll try to compensate that with like trying to like map out our life plan very closely. But if we allow ourselves to take a step back and just see what will come and trust the process that something will come, even if we don't know what it will be, I think hopefully that will work out. But
Yeah.
most of the days I'm like pretty confident that something will come,
Yeah.
and then sometimes I also have days where I'm like, oh my god,
Yeah.
what will I do next? But I think that's also just normal.
But I think that mindset makes it a lot easier, right? It makes it
Yeah.
a lot less stressful to just trust the process, I'd say, right?
Yeah, because I do believe that if I when I was a teenager and I had planned with like ever going to Harvard, I think first of all I would have thought that I'm crazy, and would have had no idea on how to actually do it. It's like if I had fixated on that plan, probably it wouldn't even have worked out like ever. And if I had fixated on any other plans, then maybe this career at HBS wouldn't have worked out either. So I think staying option and being flexible and seeing what will just happen is maybe good advice. I don't know.
That makes a lot of sense too, because like you kind of fix your horizon to the current imagination of yourself of what you currently think is possible, and maybe down the line much more is possible as you experienced firsthand, right?
Yeah.
And now, second part, besides your research and at Harvard, you are also quite active on LinkedIn, right? Maybe many people know you. I know many people from many students at the University of Mannheim know you from there. Even business administration students, not only psychology. So you really came around there, and I'd like to talk about that maybe. So why are you so active there, and maybe also in terms of scientific communication?
So I think LinkedIn is such a weird platform, first of all, and I think looking back 5 years ago, or maybe like 3 years ago, when I started posting on LinkedIn, I think many people still perceived it as quite toxic, where people like bragging about their achievements and like posting their CV, and it was like very weird how people talked about LinkedIn back then. But I do believe, and it's still the same. I think people are still quite skeptical of LinkedIn as a platform, but I do believe that has changed quite a bit, mostly because Twitter has like become less popular, and Instagram, TikTok have also changed with like the reel and video format. So I think LinkedIn has now become a platform where a lot of people are using it almost like a personal blog. At least that's what I'm trying to do with. It's like I have several goals that I pursue on LinkedIn with posting there. I think the main goal has always been like to do science communication. And because I'm a psychologist but working in an organizational context, LinkedIn has always been relevant, because if my research on passion for work is not relevant to people on LinkedIn, then it's probably not relevant to anyone. And that's why I'm connected.
That makes sense, yeah.
I'm somewhere in the intersection of like psychology and business administration now. Somewhere in between. So I think LinkedIn was a great platform to post about my research and other interesting research that I read. And I'm a huge fan of science communication more broadly. And personally, I think if my research on passion doesn't get communicated, then I don't need to do that research at all. I think that's, some people have like other perspectives on research. They're like, oh, you just do it to like accumulate knowledge. And I think that's fair too. But I think my research on passion is so applied. I think it also needs to be applied. If my research is not applied, I just don't see enough value in it personally. As other people might disagree, but for me, this like science communication part has always been a huge part of my identity, and probably also passion of mine to also like communicate that to other people. And then I have some other goals with LinkedIn too. I think I want to collect data with cool organizations and companies. So I want to put myself out there and say like I study passion, and sometimes we get connections for like data collections, for example. So that's helpful. And then I think the third part is that also like inspiring other people to like go out of their comfort zone, because I think for me this step that we just talked about, going from Saarland to Harvard, is it's almost insane. And again, I sometimes cannot believe it myself, but I think if I write about it, if I share what it feels like and is like to be a PhD student at one of the top schools in the US, maybe it becomes less abstract to other people. Because for me it was so abstract. I was flying to Boston for the first time. I had no idea what to expect. And now I think I'm quite familiar with all the positive and the negative sides that come with being at HBS. And I think if I write about it relatively transparently and authentically, maybe that will give other people a better impression of what it means to pursue a PhD and also to move to the US.
Yeah, I getting back to your point on scientific communication,
Yeah.
but also on general the
Yeah.
communication, I really agree with that. Because I think you can have as much knowledge as you want.
Yeah.
If nobody hears from that, it has not a real value. I'd say
Yeah.
obviously if in science there is quite a big gap between researchers and general public. So if you
Yeah.
do research share it with other researchers, it's still valuable.
Yeah.
But especially in that field, I think there is a huge need and or not need, but a huge potential in people learning more about real applicable science in everyday life, kind
Yeah.
of, right? And there your topic fits perfectly, because like passion is something that probably most people are interested in, more or less striving for, maybe. We will see. But here then I'd like to further understand how do you think that maybe science communication can get better, or maybe where are the problems currently? Because I
Yeah.
saw a post of you recently that you posted two different things, right?
Yeah.
And the one wasn't scientifically related at all,
Yeah.
didn't get any or did get a lot of impressions,
Yeah.
but not many interactions, right?
Yeah.
And the one scientifically connected, not a lot of impressions, but a huge amount of interactions. So people
Yeah.
were interested, but the algorithm wasn't
Yeah.
interested in sharing it, right?
Yeah.
Maybe some words to that.
Yeah. Um, I think we need science communication, or more science communication, in two aspects. The first one is, how does science work? Like the methodological and scientific and statistical understanding of how science accumulates over time, what like some problems in science currently are, like p-hacking, or like other problems that we have to deal with as psychologists. But I think there's a gap, and we saw that during crises like the COVID crisis, for example, where people are like, why are scientists changing their opinion like every 2 days? But sometimes that's just how science works, and so I think we need to have a better understanding there. And I'm trying to do that through my podcast, for example, where we don't talk about as much research, but mostly about like, what's the process of publishing a paper? What's the process of like analyzing data and things like that? And then the second part that is equally, if not more important, is like the actual findings that researchers have. And I think there's so much interesting research out there, not just from myself, but from like so many other people that I read on a day-to-day basis, that I think, that would actually be quite helpful to know for people who are pursuing this in like actual careers. Because as an organizational psychologist, I do studies with like teachers and nurses and entrepreneurs and consultants and many different professions. But those professions, they also deserve to know what our research finds. Why is that not happening? I think what you mentioned, and sometimes what I complain about, is that social media platforms make it really hard to talk about science communication in a good way. I can talk about science communication in ways that can go viral on LinkedIn, but that are not very aligned with how I think about science. If I like make things too extreme or too controversial or too opinionated. But then once I start posting about it in like a more neutral, objective, more scientific way, then my traction on LinkedIn goes down, for example. So I think that's more a structural issue on like social media platforms, and they need to think about how to change that. But then on a personal level, I think most scientists are either not interested in doing science communication or also really bad at it. Because when we write for scientific journals, it's very different than when we write for a non-academic audience. And I think many people have learned to focus so much on like the scientific jargon that they have unlearned how to reach the people outside of academia. And I'm always trying to close that gap a little bit with my own work as a science communicator.
Yes, I believe that. As you mentioned, I think the whole DNA of science and social media algorithms probably don't really fit that nicely, because like social media likes the extremes, likes the easy to understand, easy to cry about or to enjoy, right? But science often is more nuanced, more. It is not that extreme. You often can't really say it's absolutely that way, and science proves it is, and do that one thing and your life will change. What like these social media coaches often say, which I really think often is also a problem for the whole psychological field, because where are people on social media, right? And the one connection they have to psychology is then these life coaches that just talk about stuff they don't really know the scientific DNA behind, right?
Yeah. It's quite dangerous, to be honest. And just to give you an insight on how I think when I like write these posts is I always have to make these decisions and trade-offs in like how many people do I want to reach with my posts, and how much is it aligned with how I think science works. And so you know that yesterday I arrived in Mannheim with Deutsche Bahn and had like a huge delay. And from like my past experience, I know that whenever I write about Deutsche Bahn on LinkedIn, it usually goes quite viral. It's like, it's just something that people enjoy, and it's like quite opinionated and like strong emotion. And people are like, yes, I agree with that. And then so I'm now thinking like, oh, should I post about that, or should I post about this like new cool paper? And so there's a trade-off there between like the content that I post, but then also within a post, I'm like, can I have like a headline that is like more controversial, but maybe not perfectly aligned with the data? But that's something that maybe those like life coaches would post about, right? And so I'm like, am I willing to like reach fewer people but do better content, or is it worth it to like reach as many people as possible and just try to be a little bit better than life coaches? So it's like it's like quite tricky to navigate that tension. But ultimately, what we need to do is, as psychologists, to like put good content out there, I think. And I think ultimately I'm not willing to sacrifice the content just to reach people, because then it's just not worth it, because then it's like too distant from what I actually want to do.
That actually was exactly my next question, in the sense that where do you see scientific communication develop towards? Like, is it psychologists gotta understand to play the game, to play the algorithm, and to understand how it works, or and just to go where the people are, because like people are on social media, and then just to be part of the game, but do it in a professional manner? Or do you think, or is there something maybe on the rise, some interesting developments in that sphere that could really change the game for scientific communication?
I think what's helpful here is to just distinguish between short form and long form content. I mean, podcast formats or like longer conversations are great for scientists because they can explain what's actually going through their minds, and they can give like nuances and details to how they think about research. And I know a lot of professors who have now discovered the medium of podcasts. So a lot of them are going on podcasts regularly, and I think that is going quite well. I think that is a format that is working really well for researchers, because they can just talk about it. But that's simply not possible in a 5 to 10 second TikTok video. And ultimately, I think it stands in complete contrast to how science works. Science is not supposed to be able to be like summarized within 5 seconds. because our research findings, if you've ever conducted research yourself, it's like, A, you never find what you expected. B, there's always like things that work out and other things that don't work out. And C, then there's like a theory that's coming in that's not completely aligned with your data, and the implications are too distant from. It's like it's just how science works, that it's complicated. It's never easy. And so I think this short form content is perfect for life coaches. And I'm always saying life coaches, but it's like this whole like bubble of like people who are like simplifying the content too much, because that's what they do. They simplify, and then it perfectly fits within 5 to 10 seconds. So I actually don't know whether science communication in a good way is ever possible in very, very short videos. But I think YouTube has been a good medium where people can do like 5 to 10 minute videos. And then it's very much possible to talk about research in a good way, or longer podcast formats like this one.
And maybe then have extremely competent cutters that make from your long video that you created a shorter version that summarizes the key aspects without to make it kind of fit on these real and short form platforms, right?
Exactly. And I think it's important that you're saying that, because I think I went too far on one direction. At the same time, I think the solution is not for scientists to say, I won't do anything that's less than 10 seconds. Because then we just lose the battle. I think what scientists need to do is to also say, okay, this is still a valid format, and definitely one that people are very interested in. Like it's like the main preferred format at the current time, to have like these very short videos. So we need to be able to also summarize our research in very succinct ways that may not be perfectly accurate, but still good enough to reach a broader audience.
Yeah, because especially this short form stuff is like that's a whole nother topic, but maybe just to scratch it on the surface, because I think a lot of people are, especially to short form content, kind of addicted, right? And then the question is it ethically correct, I'd say, to as a researcher play the game to put more content out there that people could be addicted to, or is it harmful for the people then? Or if you spin it the other way around, the platform is there. People probably would watch I don't know what type of video, some brain rot video, if you wouldn't post, right? And therefore it is maybe your a demand, or not a demand, but your an ethical obligation maybe to put that out there, if to help people like inform themselves and learn about interesting stuff, if they are on that platform already, right?
I'm thinking about this very often too. I don't have a good answer to this. I think you're pointing out exactly what is going on. It's like both at the same time. And I think personally, over time, I've come to the decision that I don't want to do short form content anymore. I tried that myself a little bit with like shorter videos, and I'm not watching a lot of short form content myself, so I'm
Lucky you.
I'm actually not a huge expert in like what's going well, and so it's like I'm almost feeling like I'm getting too old these days, even though I'm 26. So it's like so many things have changed in recent years, and like how short form content works on TikTok and Instagram. And at the same time, like I'm actually not willing to like amplify this whole like let's compress everything to like only 5 seconds. So I'm thinking more about like, how can I write longer blog posts? How can I do like a podcast that is 30 minutes long, and hopefully help people to like decelerate in their own lives and like slow down a little bit and take the time to listen to it. Even if it reaches fewer people, I think for me that's like the decision that I've come to. But you're right with the second point. It's like if all good scientists make the same decision, then you're left with a brain rot content and short form content, and that doesn't help anyone either.
Yeah, that's true. I think that is an extremely good point to transition to the scientific communication of your research.
Let's do it.
Maybe before passion, to give you the stage, as we talked about scientific communication and how important it is to understand science correctly. What is maybe one thing you really want people to get about science and how science works, maybe to just have a better impression of what it is that doing
Yeah.
over there in the scientific, in the science realm? Yeah.
That's a good question. I think there are a few things that people misunderstand about science. I think one thing that people may have heard of, but probably still underestimate, is just how long research takes, especially in the field where I am. It's like for most of my projects, I work on them for like 3, 4, sometimes 5 years. And it takes like, there's a huge like publishing process, many review cycles. So it's like when a paper is out there, it's like something that I've worked on a long time with many iterations, thousands of hours probably with my co-authors and so on. It's it's often like a product of like thoughts that we've put into for many years. It's not just one study, it's not just maybe one theory, it's more like a summary of an entire research stream, one paper sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
And that differs a little bit between disciplines. But I think why I'm mentioning that the reason why it takes such a long time also means that our research is quite slow and not always up to date. So I get a lot of questions about AI and passion and meaningful work, and everybody thinking about AI. And obviously there are many fields that publish a lot of papers on AI, but I think research always catches up with reality. We'll probably have like a really good understanding of passion and AI in like 5 years, but that's a bit late for everybody who's thinking about it right now. So I think that's where science communication sometimes also gets a bit tricky, because I can speculate about like topics as AI based on like the things I've studied in the past and make some like inferences and what this could mean for AI. But it's always lagged. So I think that's one thing that I often find that people underestimate how long it takes. And then the second thing is that research is an iterative process, and we never reach like the truth. I think we just like reject more null hypotheses. We're like, oh, this is not true, this is not true, this is not true. And by doing that, we get a better understanding of what is actually true, but we never reach the truth. And in that sense, I think science is quite cumulative. It's like not just one paper that I publish, but like an entire portfolio of papers and like research streams that I'm working on that together allow me to hopefully today make some claims about what passion is and what it is not.
So now I'd like to dive deeper into the second part of our conversation, into what you are really researching about and what passion really is. And I think we can split that in two parts. First of all, the definition of passion, so
Yeah.
what it is, so that people can get a clearer image of it. And second part, maybe how to get closer to your passion, and maybe what to also maybe potential risks and the more nuanced stuff about the whole passion topic, right?
Totally.
So what is passion?
It's such a good question. It's a question that I get asked by our reviewers all the time. It's like in academia, we are spending a lot of time on like defining what passion actually is and what it is not, especially in relation to so many other constructs that you can think of, like meaning, purpose, calling, positive affect, intrinsic motivation, and there's probably endless more that you can think of. So there are few approaches how you can define passion, I think, and people differ in how they define it. But I think there's always this camp on like passion is something that you really, really enjoy. That's, I think, one camp. And then the other camp is more like passion is something that's really, really important to you. And those two things are connected often, but not always all the time. It's like sometimes passion can be like a hobby, but a really important hobby, or like a really enjoyable one. And then other times it's like a really big part of our identity. And I think probably because those two camps exist, I think the truth lies somewhere in between. Passion is something that is really important to us, a big part of our identity, but also something that we just really enjoy most of the time and that we like to spend a lot of time on. And that means that passions can be at work, but they can also be outside of work. I'm a very passionate chess player. I am not pursuing a chess career in my day-to-day work, obviously, because I'm really bad at it. But it's still something that I really enjoy. So I would say I'm passionate about chess, but then at the same time, I'm passionate about doing research. And doing research is something I probably wouldn't do it outside of work, but it's like something that I envision as like my career, to be a researcher. So that's why I'm like, this is so important to me. That's something I'm passionate about.
Okay. So to really challenge you, I'd say,
Yeah,
if you
yes,
say,
please.
say passion is something you really enjoy and that is very, very important
Yeah.
to you, does passion automatically lead to a feeling of meaning then? Is passion always meaningful?
Yeah.
To maybe really have a distinction between these two terms?
Yeah, I think if you wanted to make a causal claim from one direction to the other, I would say passion is what leads to meaning more so than vice versa. But maybe not all passions are like meaningful to our society. But what I would argue is that passions are always meaningful to the individual, because passions, because they're like tied to our identity, to who we are. When we engage in them, it's basically an expression of who we are. And I think that by doing that is something that feels meaningful to us. When I say I'm passionate about drinking boba, bubble tea, I would say it's probably a passion of mine. There's no value to society whatsoever, right? If I say I'm passionate about science communication, I'm like, well, there I could see like a value to society a little bit more. But I think if you talk about meaning, it's like, is it meaningful to me exclusively or meaningful to many other people around me too?
That is very challenge.
Well, good. Challenge
Done.
me
Yeah.
more. Yes.
Okay. Then, if we now bring the term purpose in there, what is that? How does that contribute to that relation, or in that triangle? Where do we locate that?
Yeah. Interestingly, in academia, how people talk about purpose is usually at a very macro level. So there's a concept called organizational purpose, and I would say 95% of the research on purpose is actually at the organizational level. Does my firm or company or organization where I'm at, does that have an organizational purpose? People in science don't really talk about purpose on like an individual level, which I think is quite interesting. So some of the questions that I'm interested in my own research is, does my own passion align with the purpose of the organization? Is there a fit or misfit? What does it mean if there's not a fit between what I think I'm passionate about and what my organization wants me to do? So I think from a science perspective, that's where most of the research questions lie. But then at the same time, outside of academia, people obviously also talk about purpose at an individual level all the time. I think it's like, does my life have a purpose? Maybe one of the most existential questions we have. And I think by pursuing not just one, but multiple passions in our lives, I think we get closer to that sense that our life is purposeful. So again, I would make the causal claim here that passion is what leads to purpose rather than vice versa. And it's important to distinguish them because purpose is a broader, more global construct, whereas passion is usually tied to one specific activity. But by not only having one passion, but maybe several passions, that's how we can maybe end up at saying like, oh, this makes sense. This is like a purpose overall.
Okay, yeah, that makes the whole image a lot clearer. I think that's very, very helpful to our audience and to me as well. Now to get back to really the passion thing. That sounded very positive now.
Yeah.
So only positive kind of
Yeah.
yet.
Yeah.
But I'm hinting towards a lot of the research you are doing because like you think of it a bit more complex in a sense that passion may not only be the most positive, the most strivable thing, I'd say maybe.
Yeah.
So some words to that.
Oh, I have so many thoughts on that. and some of it I already hinted to in the very beginning when I talked about like Leidenschaft and like the ability to suffer and like that people struggle with pursuing their passions often. It's not just an exception. It's actually what we see from many people that when they decide to pursue their passions at work, it doesn't make things easier. It usually makes them more difficult. So why is that the case? And I see two main reasons for why that is the case. The first one is that all the positive aspects in the definition that we talked about, like it's a huge part of your identity and so on, also have some downsides because if it takes up such a big space in your identity, And then imagine a day where your work is not going well. It also makes you more emotionally dependent on it. So I often think of passion as an amplifier, more high highs when things are going really well and you have successes, but also low lows because you care. Setbacks hit you harder and so on. So I think because you identify with your work so much, that's great, but also has some like darker sides to it. And then the other thing that's more related to the word Leidenschaft, and a completely different way to define the construct of passion, but I want to try it with you. What you think about it is sometimes I think of passion as like your willingness to make sacrifices for something that is deeply important to you. And I think that's a very different perspective on the concept of passion, but one that is equally true in my mind. A passion, if I invest a lot of time and effort into a passion of mine, let's say doing research, what does that entail? Well, I'm spending so much time on it, I may have less time for other hobbies or relationships and so on. I may be willing to earn less money because I'm like, well, it may not be the most lucrative career, but I'm passionate about it. You may like need to relocate. I'm passionate about doing research, but I had to move to a completely different continent. I'm living in the U.S. Do I want to live in the U.S.? I don't know. But it's like a sacrifice I was willing to make for my PhD. And there are other things. People are willing to give up stability. They're willing to go out of their comfort zone. They're willing to give up autonomy. They're willing to give up status and prestige just to pursue something they're passionate about. And do you know the movie Whiplash?
The name, but
You should watch it again.
I should watch
You
it.
should
Yeah,
watch
yeah,
it
yeah.
again. Whiplash, in my opinion, is the best movie to portray the concept of passion. It's quite disgusting, to be honest, at times. What the movie is about a drummer who wants to be the best drummer in the world, and he has like a very abusive teacher. That's the more disgusting part. But you see, like this teacher is like trying to get everything out of him, and sometimes like verbally and physically abusing him. But ultimately, you'll see him end up being like a fantastic drummer, and he made so many sacrifices for his passion all the way that he ends up achieving his goal, which is like quite twisted. But you'll see that passion in this movie is not just this positive thing, not just this like, oh, and I enjoy doing this. It's like a hobby. It's like I'm willing to do a lot of things to make this a meaningful career for myself. So I would recommend watching that movie.
I will.
If you want
I
to,
will. That's on the to-do list now.
nice. If you want to get a better understanding on like the more negative side of what it means to pursue your passion.
I love that idea actually,
Yeah.
because like this whole sacrifice aspect is like in Germany there's the phrase die eierlegende Wollmilchsau.
Oh yes,
sozusagen.
yeah.
So you can't have everything, right? You have to make sacrifices, especially maybe if you're a very passionate person. You maybe have many different passions, and then you are especially interested and especially enjoy one topic, and then you zero in on that, and then you put a lot of resources in on that. And if you are then struggling and if it's then not going very well, I really believe that then you feel a lot of negative emotions, and it could lead to burnout, because your whole big life decisions depend on that passion going well, right? And then it's a very personal thing for you, because it is so important to you, but it is not going well, and then it's a direct attack towards your values or how you feel, you as a person, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I think in the end, it's all a matter of priority. And a passion always wants you to prioritize it more. It's like, I think it's like this like pull towards what you feel passionate about. Once you have like found your passion, like pursuing your passion, you're like you want to spend more time with it. So you're prioritizing above and beyond other things. And then in research, there's a distinction between harmonious and obsessive passion. And it's called the dualistic model of passion, saying that people either have this like harmonious or obsessive passion. And I'm simplifying it a little bit here, but I often think about it as harmonious passion as like 80% passion, and obsessive passion is like 100% passion.
Okay.
And I think the more you prioritize your passion above other things, that means that you can achieve great things, like the drummer in the movie. But it also means that the costs become higher. because then you get more emotionally dependent on it. So for most people, harmonious passion is really what they're looking for, not obsessive passion. They don't want to like only exclusively focus on that one passion and then really suffer from time to time. They want to have like harmonious passion. They're like 80% passion, but they also have other important things going on in their lives, and they feel like they're still in charge of that passion. And I think that's just a very important distinction to make. Where do I want to be? Because there's also, to some extent, a personal and individual preference. I had times where I was like, I want to be like obsessively passionate. Like research is all I want to do in my life. And then I did that for a few years. And then I was like, well, now I want more like harmonious passion. I actually am also interested in like this and that and many other things. And I also want to have time and energy to pursue these things. So I think now personally, I've shifted more from an obsessive passion more to a harmonious passion. And I think my life has become more healthy. Have I become a bit less successful? Perhaps. But I think overall, if I were to evaluate my life, I think harmonious passion for most people is a more healthy option.
Nice. That's really ticked something, because before the episode we talked about the curvilinear relation between passion and performance, I think, right?
Yes, that's
right. That's one of your big research topics currently, right? That fits to the concept probably, right?
Actually, yes. It's perfectly aligned with that, and that's one of the projects I've been working on for, I think, at least 4 years now. But it looks at the relationship between how passionate I feel and how well I perform in the moment. And what we see is this curvilinear relationship. And I think most people would probably hypothesize, if they don't think about it for too long, but people think it's like a linear relationship. The more passionate you are, the better you perform. But that's actually not true. It has diminishing returns, and even more so, we see that there's actually costs to too much passion. And so we identified this curvilinear relationship in a hospital setting with nurses 3 or 4 years ago, where we find that, well, sometimes people, they are more passionate, but they perform worse. And then over the past 2 years, I spent a lot of time figuring out why that is. Like, what are the specific costs that people have? And there's one just, I think, hilarious aspect about passion that I want to share, which is if we feel passionate in the moment, we prioritize things that allow us to feel more passion at the expense of other things. It's almost like a drug. If we feel passion and we're like, this like fires us up in the moment, we want more of that and we're willing to do less of other things. So we have like some really funny experiments where we tell people, you're really busy, you have so many deadlines, you really need to get your work done, otherwise your supervisor will be really annoyed at you. And then we induce like different levels of passion you feel. And then we say, but there's this super cool like project, side project that's really not important, but you feel very passionate about it. And then when people, they feel very passionate in the moment, they're willing to do that and neglect all their other important tasks. They're like, they go with what allows them to feel more passion at the expense of their job performance. And in a hospital setting, you'll see, for example, when nurses are very passionate, they will spend a lot of time with patients that they really like and that are friendly to them. But they will neglect a lot of other patients that are less friendly to them, or neglect other important tasks. And that, of course, in a hospital setting can be quite consequential and have performance costs. So that's just one of the mechanisms that we look at, but one that I find particularly interesting because I see that in myself as well. I love saying yes to new projects that are exciting, even if I don't have time for them. And then I spend a lot of time like refining and developing a new idea that is like exciting while neglecting like, I don't know, an appendix table that I really need to fix and just submit a paper. So sometimes we focus our priority towards the things that allow us to feel more passion, even if it's actually harmful to our performance. And maybe something that's worth paying attention to.
One thing that came up then, let's say in your example, what if both topics are a passion of yours? I'd say, right? We now, I think, are pretty clear that it's not only about having your one passion for life.
Absolutely, yes.
It can change. You can have different passions. But what do you decide for if you have the option between two passions, and maybe one passion, you research, is more long-term, and the other one, going to a concert or whatever, is then more proximate maybe. How is the human mind, body, whatever, differentiating between these two then?
Yeah, fascinating question, I think, because that's exactly what is the reality for many people, and I think what you're opening is actually a shift to the conversation that I often hear. A lot of people are talking about finding your one passion. Like, it's like, find your passion, as if it's like one thing. And as you said, that's obviously not true. Most of us have multiple passions. And in fact, when I talk to like business administration students and they ask me, I often tell them, it's like, think about it like your stock portfolio. It's like you don't want
that works, yeah.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
If you're like, think of your identity, you don't want to invest everything you have into just one stock. That would be like obsessive passion, 100% passion, and then you're emotionally dependent on like the fluctuations from it. You want to have like multiple stocks and diversify your portfolio. So one exercise that I recommend to a lot of people is to draw a network of multiple passions that they have. Like, just write it down, because that's something we don't often think about. And then you'll see which of these passions are in harmony to each other and which passions are in conflict to each other. Right? Because I would say my passion for doing research and my passion for science communication, they are broadly in harmony with each other. They fit to each other. But if I have a passion, like you said, for research, and I have a passion for like going to a concert, well, sometimes I need to make a trade-off in the moment. So that can be quite tricky, because one, as you said, is more short-term, the other is more long-term and maybe less urgent. But I think having this network of things that are important to you and then seeing how these things connect to each other is a good first step. And then I think it's always a good idea to think about like life and like phases, and asking yourself, what phase am I in currently? For me personally, I often have like two phases. I have like the phase where I'm in the US, and I have a phase where I'm in Germany. And many people obviously don't live in two places and switch many times in a year. But for me, when I'm in the US, I'm usually more work focused. I'm like, I'm living in Boston, I'm doing my PhD, and I spend a lot of time doing research. And then when I'm in Germany, I'm like, well, now I'm here, I can prioritize other things too. So now I can spend more time with like old childhood friends, and I can travel around and maybe visit family and so on. So I often think about like, what phase am I in right now, and what do I want to focus on? So we don't have to do all things at the same time at once, but we can say like, maybe this is like the first quarter of the year is maybe really work focused, and I will neglect other things for a little bit, and then maybe in the summer I'll do it the other way around.
There, two ideas came up here.
Yes.
I love the idea of the passion network,
Yeah.
kind of, because in a sense that if you have it mapped out, it's much less chaotic in your mind, right?
Yeah.
And then you can look at it, reflect on it, change it, as
Yeah.
we learned, and also see, okay, maybe what is the most important thing right now to focus on, probably,
Yeah.
right? To then you can see from the network, you can also maybe make a kind of a hierarchy. Okay,
Yeah.
now within the next week, if we really want to break down these episodes that you just laid out, within the next week, this is the one passion I should really focus on, because it's very important to me. I enjoy it a lot, and it's situationally important because I have a deadline, whatever, or I have exams like we students do.
Yeah.
I love that exercise.
Yeah.
Big recommendation, that I will do it after our talk as well. I think that's a great idea. Yeah.
I do it myself sometimes too, because sometimes when you visualize these things, you'll see things that you may have thought about like implicitly, but not really explicitly. So sometimes it's easy to just map it out. And then the idea of priority, again, I think is one of the most important ideas, that you're like, well, right now I'm prioritizing this thing, and then in another week you may be prioritizing other things. So it's like shifting from time to time.
Yeah, and you can track your process, your
Yeah.
progress, kind of, right?
Yeah.
Because then we kind of destroy the mindset of find your one passion, the holy grail, that one thing. It is, you create that map, you look at it for now, this date, and then after a couple of weeks, a month maybe, you look back on it and see, okay, this is how my mind was, how I operated back then, and maybe something changed now, And if you really use that as a dynamic map of changes, developments, then I think people can really realize how fluid the whole concept is, and how actually amazing it is that you can really change and are allowed to change, and that it is not that one goal in life to find your passion and then everything is achieved, right?
Yes, exactly. And I love the idea of tracking your progress, I think, for two reasons. Because when you know what you spend a lot of time on, it helps you with those two things. The first one is sometimes we believe that we have a passion, but we don't really spend time on it in our day-to-day lives. And for me, at least, spending time on it is part of the definition of passion. I don't think you can be passionate about something. Like for me, for example, I was playing handball for most of my youth, but that sport doesn't exist in the US. But sometimes, for the past 5 years, I haven't played handball at all. But sometimes I still notice how when I'm like describing what sport I'm doing, I'm like, yeah, I'm like playing handball. I'm like passionate about handball. But I don't think I am anymore because I'm not doing it. So I think maybe it's like something that was important to me in the past, most definitely. But I think for something to be a passion, we also need to have the space to actually engage in it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think for me, it's just a passion that has shifted over time and probably faded.
Yeah.
But then when we track what our progress is, we also see what we actually spend time on. And I think that helps maybe with the question, what am I actually passionate about? A lot of people struggle with that question because they're like, I don't know what I'm passionate about. I don't find my passion. But sometimes the challenge is that they're making it too difficult for themselves, that they have such a high bar for what counts as a passion that they're like, I don't have any passions at all. But I think sometimes we just need to lower that bar a little bit. Maybe track what are you actually spending time on in your day-to-day lives. And you may notice I'm spending 80% of my time on things that I really don't enjoy and don't care about. Well, that's probably a sign to change if you have the autonomy and freedom to change that. But other times you notice, oh, I'm actually, I don't know, in my case, I'm spending a lot of time writing LinkedIn posts. And then I'm like, well, I've never thought about myself as a science communicator, but I guess it's more important to me than I thought. So now I'm like, well, maybe is this a passion that I'm developing over time? I'm spending so much time on it. And there's some research supporting that too, showing that if you invest a lot of time and effort into something over time, you'll get more passionate about it. And it's not just vice versa. We often think that people who are very passionate, that they spend more time in something. Most definitely, 100%. But also the things that we spend a lot of time on also makes us more passionate.
That's
if we
very
care about it.
So you wouldn't say that being passionate is a personality trait, kind of?
Well, I do see that argument too. I think there are some people who have like very passionate personalities and others less so. And if you wanted, you could even make it about the cultural level. I think Germany is not famous for being like a very passionate country. If you look at like, I don't know, Latin American countries, you would describe a lot of people or that culture as more passionate, I guess. So I think you can make it very high level, but then on an individual level as well. I think there's some people who can like attract and be passionate about many different things, and others who are like maybe less open and less visibly expressing their passions. So I think there's an argument for it to be made as a personality trait as well. But that doesn't mean that there are people who can't develop passions and there are people who can develop passions. I think everyone has the ability to be passionate about something. You just need to allow yourself to be like, yeah, that's something I'm passionate about.
That's nice. I think that is a perfect transition into the thing that we were talking about, the second part, in the sense that how to develop your passion. I mean, we hinted it already a bit with the network exercise, I'd say. But I realize, especially students, often are like, hey, I don't know, I don't have no passion. I'm not a passionate person. And then maybe the first question, would you say that it should be a primary goal in life to be passionate, kind of, or is it something people should strive for because of the different benefits it has? Or if it's not passion, what is then the it's a huge question.
Yeah.
We probably don't have the perfect answer for it, and it's
Yeah.
individual. But what is then the goal people, especially students, maybe
Yeah.
should strive for to get clearer on? Is it passion? Is it purpose, meaning? Or what is it?
I'm really glad you're bringing that up, because there's one thing I forgot when I talked about the passion networks, and I think I want to mention it now, which is when you have your network of things you're passionate about, or at least interested in, I think you can also see what are some of the things that I want to pursue maybe in my work, and what are things that I want to pursue outside my work. And I think that's an important distinction. I think I have some passions, like playing chess, which I mentioned. It's like, well, I think chess is complicated because I also don't have the skills to pursue it at work. But there's maybe a more obvious example is, let's say, a person who's passionate about doing yoga. Should that person open their own yoga studio? Should they become a yoga coach? Or should they just keep it as a passion outside of work? And I think there's no right answer to it. It's like a personal decision that you need to make. I will say we do see a lot of people who are like, I'm passionate about this, now I want to make it my full job, and then they struggle with it a lot, because then you're teaching yoga 8 hours a day, you're not doing yoga yourself, so you're losing connection to the thing you were once passionate about. So I think there's some risks about like being like, I'm passionate about, let's make it my full-time job. So I would be a bit more cautious than that. And just think about like, okay, why am I passionate about this? Like, what value is that perhaps reflecting on? And then I think sometimes we're like, well, maybe this is just something outside of work. And I think that's a very valid argument. And I love it when people have passions outside of work. And other times you might be like, I've always been interested in like math and maybe statistics. Maybe I want to do a PhD. Maybe that's a passion I want to try. Or other people may be like, I don't know, I've been interested in like finance. Maybe I want to pursue a career in finance. Or others are like, I've always liked, I don't know, educating people or explaining to them constructs in high school, and then they want to become a teacher. So I think sometimes we're like, oh, we have this passion, and we're like, this could actually become my full-time job. So I think at work, outside of work is extremely important distinction.
It fits to what you just said. The thing that passion can grow by investing time in it, right?
Exactly.
You don't have to say, okay, I have this set of passions.
Yeah.
One of these gotta be my career choice now. But if you have something you're interested in, then, but maybe it's not the burning passion.
Yeah.
It still say, okay, it kind of aligns with my values. Let's try it as a career, and then the passion for that can also build, right?
Yeah. And just one thing to reiterate again, because I think it's so important, is that not always does it mean that spending more time on something will actually increase your passion. With the yoga example, I think it's really important to say like, I'm doing yoga, I'm passionate about this, maybe I should do yoga as a full-time job. Well, think about what exactly you're passionate about. Maybe those people aren't passionate about educating other people or doing yoga all day long. Maybe what they're really passionate about is like the relaxation that comes with it, or the movement, or like just like getting to know yourself better. So I think sometimes passion can be quite like maybe a part of what you're actually doing. But then when you're making it your job, you're losing that particular part that you're passionate about. So sometimes spending more time is not the solution. Oftentimes it is, but I think it's always something we have to keep in the back of our mind. Yes. So that's the one thing I wanted to say about passion at work and passion outside of work. But then to your question about like developing passion, I think one thing always to consider is skill. How good are you at it? And I think if you don't want to pursue your passion at work, that's probably a good way to go. Ask yourself, what am I good at? And a lot of people are out there these days saying, don't follow your passion, follow what you're good at. And I probably, even though I'm often studying the negative sides of passion, I still encourage people to pursue your passion. I think it's worth it. It's great to like express yourself at work and do something that is meaningful to you. But that gets easier if you're also good at it. And are you familiar with the concept of ikigai?
Yeah.
Yeah, so ikigai is like this Japanese concept, basically describing the purpose of life, saying you need to find something you're good at, something that you love, something that you can make money with, and something that the world needs. And then it's like this combination. And the way how you combine the circles, there's also one intersection that is called passion explicitly. But it's the intersection of what you love and what you're good at. So this concept of ikigai even says it's a condition to be good at something in order to call it your passion. That's a bit extreme.
Yeah.
It's not part of like our scientific definition, but I think it's always interesting to consider, like, can we only be passionate about things that we're good at? And then in a work context, I tend to say yes, or at least we need to be able to get better at them over time. I can be passionate about playing chess and be really bad at it and still be passionate, but I can't make that my career because I'm just not good at it. I can't make any money with it. And making money should perhaps not always be the main priority, but it's always something we should think about when we make it our full-time job.
That's very interesting in the whole dynamic of choosing your full-time job then,
Yeah.
right? Because to just dive deeper into that thing you are good at, is it in a sense of talent? Is it like a natural skill that you have? Should your talents be a real thing to consider in your life path, career choices, or good at in the sense that something that you've just practiced a lot?
Now you're opening the big questions. I don't have a good answer to this, to be honest. I guess the most obvious psychological answer would be yes, it's both, because that's probably what is actually true. It's like we bring some talents to the table, and then we also practice a lot. And some people would argue, if you know the concept of grit from Angela Duckworth, which is defined as like passion plus perseverance, that we get better at the things we're passionate about because we're willing to invest a lot of time in it. So there's a practice component. If you pursue a passion over time, that it's likely that you will get better at it over time. But sometimes, I mean, I don't know. I don't think I could ever be an astrophysicist, for example. Or as much as I want to be passionate about being an astronaut, it's not going to happen in this lifetime for me. So there's some like natural limits to what we can be passionate about. Does that mean I should be like really sad that I can't pursue my passion of being an astronaut? I don't think so. It's like, maybe I have a too pragmatic and too practical approach to passion here, but I'm like, well, there's endless other things I can be passionate about. So I think giving myself the agency of saying, I have some say in what I'm passionate about can be really helpful. And then still, like, astronomy can still be like a passion outside of work. I can still, like, I don't know, maybe watch the news or like be interested in like what NASA is doing and so on. I'm just not an astronaut myself because that wasn't possible for me. But instead, maybe I can do other important and cool things that may be more feasible and more aligned with what I'm actually good at.
Yeah. That's very interesting. And maybe your thoughts on that. An idea that just came up in terms of career choices for students. Because that's a very relevant thing that is coming up to a lot of us. I think what maybe came out is that it maybe makes sense to look back at your life and to see, okay, what is the underlying storyline here?
Yeah.
What is the red thread? I don't know if you say that in English, but the rote Faden.
Yes.
That from a young age to where I am now, it's always a skill, a certain thing that I was pretty good at, that worked well for me, or that I just really enjoyed maybe. Take these into consideration, and then also think about if you say you have different passions, think of your passions and see, okay, is this underlying theme also represented in these passions maybe? And in what sense, right? And then if you see, okay, I see a huge correlation here, maybe then you can say, okay, let's think about pursuing that path. It's something I seem to be pretty good at, that was very relevant for me my whole life. I'm still passionate about it right now. And maybe then this could be a great choice because it seems to be fairly easy to me. I love it currently, and then maybe you have the best out of both worlds.
Yeah. I think that's a good approach. What we've been talking about mostly so far, before you brought this up, was like what I would call like the bottom up approach to like passion, by like experimenting with things and like paying attention to what you're spending a lot of time on, and then inferring what could be your passion. And I think now what you're opening is like the top down approach to passion. I think if you want to find and develop a passion, it's probably a combination of both, like bottom up and top down. What I mean with top down is that you're reflecting on your values and like the personal narrative of your life, and be like, well, there's some things that just show up over and over again. And I think those are good indicators for what you're passionate about and what is generally important to you in life. So, and sometimes that's a bit counterintuitive, because and the way that I described my passion in the very beginning was that it's like huge coincidence and like surprise, and these things show up, but there's always like underlying values that are still reflected. So for me, I'm like, I was surprised that I liked statistics in university, but at the same time, I also liked math in school. I think I was always more of an analytical person, and so on. So I think there's some like signs that this was actually not that surprising after all, even though it felt very surprising in the moment. So sometimes taking a step back, reflecting on your values, what is important to you, and then combining it with things that you can actually do in your day-to-day life, I think that's exactly that combination of like the top-down and bottom-up approach that ultimately ends up in this thing where you say like, this is my passion.
Nice. That I think that's extremely valuable advice for students, but for also many other people. Because like, obviously as a student, you have this decision right in front of you, but also for others, it's always, you can always change your path. You correct your path, change something within your storyline. So maybe to really summarize it in a step-by-step process, if it's possible. We started the conversation with you talking about that going to Harvard was kind of luck. It happened. You saw that ad and you applied, and then it was there. And wow, it's amazing. Now you are here. How can we, out of that consideration, how can we, if we take the luck element out of it, maybe what is a strategic way then to approach this whole topic from I'm not a passionate person. I have no passion. Towards me finding my way to specific passion, and then also maybe to a career, and to build my pillars of life kind of on something that is important to me, and that so that I just have a feeling of purpose and meaning in life, because it just really reflects my values, what my life is built on, right?
I think if I were to talk to a person who's telling me that they don't know what they're passionate and they think they have no passions, I think the first thing I would say is like, reduce the pressure a little bit. I think this often shows up as a symptom for people who are like so fixated on like finding something that are passionate that it's actually counterproductive. And I think sometimes reduce the pressure a little bit, and then do this like top-down and bottom-up approach. Think about the things that you enjoy doing and that you're doing anyway, and think about the things that are important to you. Those are the two things that I used in the beginning to like define passion, like what you enjoy and what is important to you. What you enjoy may be more the bottom-up approach, and what is important to you more the top-down approach, what you're reflecting in. Do these things, and then lower your bar, your threshold for what counts as a passion a little bit. Maybe, I don't know, maybe you're playing soccer 3 times a week. Well, soccer is a passion of you. It doesn't need to be your one calling, but it can be a passion, right? So it's like, it's a good first step to lower your bar sometimes. And then when you're thinking about it more in career terms, not just outside of work, but in a career terms, I conducted some interviews with Harvard undergrads a few years back, and the one thing that was very consistent in those who like successfully pursue their passions outside of work then, is that they were good at combining like these idealistic things with like passion and what you want to do, but all of that with like more strategic, pragmatic considerations. what I heard many times were people saying, I don't want to sacrifice everything. It's not like I don't want. Sometimes we moralize that pursuing your passion means not making any money. But a lot of people are not willing to do that. They're not like, well, I didn't study here at a top school for 4 years and then not make any money at all. It needs to sometimes be both at the same time. So be pragmatic about it. If you're like, I like educating people, well, think about like what fits the lifestyle that you want to have. If you want to make $500,000 a year, then maybe becoming a teacher is not a great option. If you want to have a stable life with a relatively decent outcome, then becoming a teacher is a great option for you. But it's like it depends on so many other factors as well. And I think that's one of the reasons why people sometimes are like hesitant with the whole follow your passion thing. Because they're like, well, follow your passion is important, but it's only one thing. But if you really want to make a successful career decision, you also need to factor in many other decisions as well, and then see what works for you, and not just focus on passion. I love passion. I think focusing on passion is great because that's what will give you meaning for a long time. But so do money and status and many other things as well.
That's great. Yeah. And then maybe the final step to that consideration. As we said that passion is an element of what it is that your life is all about, kind of. What is it then people should, on a larger scale, chase for? Is it that on the other hand, people can do whatever they want, right?
Yeah.
But from a scientific perspective, then also, what is it that brings maybe also the largest well-being, success, identification with your values, whatever, to people? Is it following their passions? Is it a part of the equation? And what are maybe other elements of that equation? If you had the chance to recommend people, okay, if you want to live a great life, do that.
Yeah. I think don't try to optimize for well-being and happiness. It's something that we've tried and researched for a long time. It's simply not working, in my opinion. And this may be a bit more controversial. So this is more, I think, my personal opinion on this now. And not everybody may agree with this. But I think growing up, I also thought maybe we should all like just try to do the things that make us happy. But if we do that, then we spend a lot of time on social media, one of your first questions today, because it gives us like a lot of dopamine in the moment, but it doesn't make us happy ultimately, right? So I think trying to focus on what gives you immediate happiness in the moment is not the way to go. Instead, what people are looking for in life is meaning. And this gets a bit weird, but I think because our lives are pretty meaningless, in a very global, big sense, I think we're trying to do everything that we can to give our lives meaning. And one way to do that is to follow your passions and to spend time on the things that you feel passionate about, because it's an expression of yourself, and that is something that we can derive meaning from. So I would always encourage people to follow their passions and combine it with many other things too. But if you were to ask me, like, what makes a great life, I think I'm following a theoretical perspective now that I've become a fan of in recent years, which is called value fulfillment. And I think that's very much aligned with passion as a construct. We have certain values, and if we are able to live our lives that in a way that is aligned with those values, that should lead to meaning and like a full and rich life. And I think values are very abstract construct. I may have an understand what my values is, but I cannot live and value it directly. But I can live it through my passions. So I would probably say we have values back of our minds. We express that in day-to-day lives through our passions and other things, and that gives us meaning. And if we do that, I would still argue that's like a full, rich, integrated life that ultimately may also give us more happiness.
I love that. I really, really love that, and I think that's a great summary of what we talked about. I would leave it as it is, because I think that's an amazing closing statement, kind of. Do you have anything to add on our conversation? Anything you'd like to share And if not, maybe give the people an opportunity to stay in touch with you, to your different resources where you put out your output at. Yeah.
Totally. I mean, we've mentioned LinkedIn. I post on LinkedIn multiple times a week. I also have a newsletter there where I write about these topics such as passion, once per month at the moment. And I have a podcast which I also mentioned, which is called Positiv Korreliert. It's in German. That's more about statistics and research more generally in the life of PhD students. And I have a YouTube channel coming up starting in July 2026, which we don't have anything published yet, but we recorded our first videos. We're planning to launch that because we have a craving. I'm doing it with a friend of mine, and both of us have a craving for more long-form content. And we want to talk about psychological topics, not just in a few seconds, but in like 10 to 15 minutes and explain what is going on in our minds.
That's amazing. What type of psychological topic?
All kinds of psychological topics, but there will be a video about passion too.
That's nice.
Yes.
Then that will be the next one that people can watch. If the episode, if they watch the episode a bit further back in time, then they can jump right to that video.
Perfect.
Then
Thank
that
you.
would be it from my side. I love the conversation, and
Me
I
too.
think so many great, valuable tips, advice, and insights into your mind.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much.